All right, folks, welcome to another edition of Outspoken. I'm Dan Sileo. What an absolutely amazing time in sports. We got the Major League Baseball trading deadline on Monday. We've got teams in camp right now prepping up for the 2026 NFL season. College football 27 days away. All the great things going on in baseball, WNBA news as well. But first and foremost, as we get closer to college football, some college football news. So let me start this thing off with who's emerging as my favorite college football coach. He's a little bit of old school Woody Hayes. He's a little bit of Steve Spurrier, and he's a little bit of Nick Saban. And you put it all together, who do you get? You get Curt Cignetti, the head football coach of Indiana University, the number one coach in all of college football. I said it, the number one coach in college football in 2026 resides in Bloomington, Indiana. You told me that 10 years ago. I would told you were nuts and you needed to see a psychiatrist. Indiana University is now the number one program in the country and one of the top 5 programs that kids want to go to. And it's all because of the main man, Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti's already throwing darts at people, most notably the Southeastern Conference. I love this quote here. The Big Ten is the best league in football. We don't run a hype machine up here. We just don't in the Midwest. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. We just win. That's what this guy's all about, man. Talks about bringing a bigger gun. Hey, you got a target now on in your program. No, I bought a bigger gun. This guy is a quote machine, and you know what he does? He backs it up. He's also got a little bit of a coach that I played for, and that was the legendary Jimmy Johnson. You know, back in the day, we were notorious for all the quotes that would come out of our program. It was called the word swagger. And that's what this guy has now brought back to college sports, is the word swagger. You know what swagger? I get asked this question all the time. Sills, I just posted something over on my X account. We were inside the top 10 when it came to being in the top 10 AP for over 137 weeks. That's the kind of program we had, and we walked with swagger. And we're asked all the time, and I'm asked, what's the word swagger mean? To me, it means winning. You can't have swagger if you don't win. Hey, it's one thing to be a trash talker like Deion Sanders in Colorado and not win. And that's what Deion is. Everything that we thought and everything that the media thought that Deion was going to bring to Colorado, Cignetti has done it in Bloomington. Here's a guy that was at Elon. I just had to ask the producers where that was. They told me it's in Carolina, so I'm taking their word for it. James Madison. What? James Madison? Oh, yeah, that team that made the college playoff with the majority of his kids still there, and he brought 13 of them to Bloomington himself to go on and win a national championship against Mike Haynes. The guy is an ultimate recruiter. Now, the big thing is going to see what is going to be the encore in Bloomington. What's next with this program? He is the quintessential coach right now when it comes to coaching college football in the Nell era. Transfer portal means what? Free agency. This guy knows how to handle both. He gets players to come in and play for him, and he turns programs around wherever he is. Billy Napier just took that James Madison job after getting blown out at Florida because James Madison is now a program that coaches want to go to and coach at. Crazy. And that's what Cignetti has done to Indiana. Let's not forget something else at Indiana. This is the home of Bobby Knight. Indiana basketball, the movie Hoosiers. There's no movie Hoosiers when it comes to football. And the movie Hoosiers applies to the football program and them winning a national championship. It's an incredible story. I've never seen this meteoric rise when it comes to a coach in my life like Curt Cignetti. I can't wait to see what he does in 2026. All right, let's go over to the NFL. And the 49ers get some bad news here. Ricky Pearsall, the kid who they drafted in the first round a couple of years ago out of Florida, who was shot, if you remember, in his rookie season, really has not gotten out to a great start in his career. Now he's lost for the season after lengthy discussions with doctors. 49er wide receiver Ricky Pearsall is expected to undergo season-ending injury on a nagging PCL injury. More bad news again here for the 49ers. They get real bad news the other day when it came to their head football coach, Kyle Shanahan, who was in a car accident. And everyone knows the storyline behind this thing, or kind of knows the storyline behind this, that he's going to miss a significant piece of the preseason and potentially even the September 10th game against the Los Angeles Rams. Let me put this out here about Shanahan. It's one thing to have the reputation on being considered the best play caller in the National Football League. As a matter of fact, the New York Times / The Athletic came out with their top 10 play callers in the NFL. And guess who sits at the top? Kyle Shanahan. One of the best reputations in all of the National Football League. Well, here, this is where we're going. I think Kyle Shanahan is the most overrated NFL head football coach in the league today. Hey, just because your last name is Shanahan, let me put it out there to you, kid. You ain't Mike Shanahan. You got to win. And I'm not just talking about regular season wins. I'm talking about wins that matter, wins that win championships. You can't leave this game with having that distinction of giving up the biggest points in the history of the Super Bowl because of your incompetence when it came to play calling with that Atlanta fiasco against Brady's Patriots. You had a 28-point lead. What happened? Got conservative. Well, that has been a mantra for Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan doesn't really do well when it comes to the 2-minute warning going in, to the timeouts when it comes into going into halftime, and he doesn't do well when it comes to the 2-minute warning at the end of football games. We saw that play out a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl. The 49ers had the lead going into the extra frame. They had that game. What happened? Conservative Kyle Shanahan. I say it again. I think the guy is one of the great minds in the game. You talk about scheming up an offense. You talk about getting people like Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo to Super Bowls. There's no question. When it comes to developing of quarterbacks, comes to developing of schemes, comes to developing of how to get guys open, there's really nobody better in the National Football League, maybe outside of a Sean McVay and Andy Reid. But, dude, when you get into the crunch time, you've got to win ball games. You just can't say, well, you know, we're 12-5. We had a really good year. We beat the Eagles in the opening round of the playoffs. We had a really good season. We lost a lot of players when it came to injuries. Folks, how coaches are gauged in this league, they are gauged by winning the games that matter. Remember, you make your money in the regular season. And you know what you do in the postseason? That's where you make your legacy. Kyle Shanahan, and I say it, is overrated. I mean, you can't keep giving a guy a crown and saying he's the best play caller in football. And what has he won? Well, he's won nothing. Look at what Sean McVay just turned 40. He's got 100 wins. He's got 2 NFC championships. He's got a Super Bowl. He's taken a quarterback in Jared Goff. He sent him to Detroit. They end up bringing Matthew Stafford. And what did they do with Matthew Stafford? They won that Super Bowl in Los Angeles. And what did he do? He saved a career that was dying in Detroit, and now he's on his way to Canton. Sean McVay is 40 years old. He's younger right now than Aaron Rodgers. I say this, you got to win a Super Bowl, Kyle, or you'll go down as the most overrated coach in NFL history. All right, my great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason, with over $30 billion recovered. There is no firm like Morgan & Morgan. Told you about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K. They got nearly $30 million in settlement. Or the family in Florida that was initially offered $350,000. They got nearly $12 million. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sales sent you. The WNBA is starting to become a content machine. It's incredible what's going on in that league. We're going to talk to Jay White next, right here on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is. It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, I was just telling JY here that, University of Miami has now got a big booster now, and it is Dana White from UFC. And I saw Sophie Cunningham going around with the cards, and she was like a ring girl. And I'm like, wait a second here. We got kind of like a cult star here. So, JY, I'm becoming a Sophie Cunningham fan. Is she good?
Big Sills, great to be on with you as I end up my National Lampoon's East Coast vacation. Sophie Cunningham is, how can I explain? She's not a star, but she is a definite rotation piece for one of the top teams in the WNBA. Big Sills averaging about 10 points a game. She is I think she's a 43% shooter from three. So she does her job well and knows her job well. The best part about Sophie's game is her teammates generally love her. Obviously, you see what she's done to protect Caitlin Clark. She's very popular in that Indiana Fever locker room. So, yes, she may not be the core player like a Caitlin Clark or a Kelsey Mitchell or a Leah Boston, but she's pretty damn important to not only that team, but that fan base as well.
Do you see more personality starting to emerge in the WNBA? I mean, with more cameras on them and more exposure. Look, the storylines haven't been great for them, but still, as we all say, you know what? Bad publicity sometimes is good publicity because you got eyeballs on your network and you got eyeballs on your league. Are we starting to see more of these personalities start to come forward here so that they can promote?
Big Sills, any publicity is good publicity for this league. A league that's been mired in losing money forever. And I think honestly, Big Sills, with social media and how popular it is, I think that becomes another part of it that makes it more important to the league. I mean, Sophie Cunningham is a personality. Big Sills, is she one of the 10 best players in the league? No. 20? No. 30? No. Maybe top 40. But Big Sills, Sophie Cunningham is one of the 10 most recognizable people in the league. It kind of reminds me of like she's not Jeremy Lin, because Jeremy Lin, she's been doing it for years. But if you think about it, Jeremy Lin wasn't a great player, but he got on the run. He became marketable, and everybody jumped on that Linsanity thing. I'm not saying that's the deal with Sophie, because Sophie has had an extended, really good career, but she's extremely popular in the WNBA, not just for her thoughts, but let's be honest, she's a very nice looking young lady with good personality, so people gravitate to who she is.
All right, I thought James Dolan was the only guy that worried about what signs were in the stands and all this and that. And we have an issue here going on with the WNBA here with the Seattle Storm. The owner, Celeste Keaton, was suspended 5 home games. What was your takeaway on that and how the WNBA handled that?
Big Sills, the WNBA is a league that they're so overly conscious of what is being said about them publicly and who they piss off that I think sometimes they do too much. Listen, fans are going to be fans. People are going to have signs, and sometimes they're not going to be something you want. But as an owner, you have to do the right thing and turn the other cheek, and let people have their right, whether you agree with it or not. And I think the problem with the WNBA is they're trying to make money, but at the same time, like try to pick who their audience of who they're trying to back. And I think that is the issue that they're wrestling with. But at the same time, people have different philosophies, whether it's race or gender or sexual preference or political affiliation. Big Sills, Republicans and Democrats sit next together at a basketball game, an NBA game, and sit next to each other in an NHL game, an NFL game. Why can't they do it in a WNBA game? They have to stop worrying about like what all these little people that they have to satisfy and work on, ready for this, putting a damn good product on the floor that's marketable.
Absolutely. I watched the WNBA yesterday, and I'll further this with you here. You think they struggle with how to handle identity politics? And what I mean by that is, like you just said, they want to appease this, they want to appease that. Hey, man, just go out and play hoop. All that other stuff, doesn't it just follow when you put a good product out there? I mean, dude, like, what was the line that Michael Jordan used? Republicans buy sneakers too. If they had that mentality, wouldn't they go forward more? And that has to start with the commissioner again.
Well, I mean, by the way, Big Sills, I had to take my thinking cap off so I can make sure I can get all the right words out of my mouth. But listen, we've talked about Kathy Engelberg every time I come on this show, and I've told you that they have a problem with her. The league is finally in a good place. And the last thing that I want to do or to see is someone that is a big believer in women's basketball is them to blow it. Don't blow it. You have the chance. You have the marketability. You have the contracts. Just don't blow it. Focus on the game and not everything else.
All right, let me go to a hoop question. How good is the game and where is the game right now compared to where it was, say, 3-4 years ago? Compared to the level of talent where it was to where it is. I mean, people always said, hey, look, we've had great talent here before. But why is it? I mean, maybe because I'm a new viewer to the league here. Every year I'm watching, I see better basketball. Am I right when I say that?
Big Sills, the game continues to evolve and keep getting better. And I think having people like Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers, Sonia Citron the last couple of years have built off of it. The league has expanded, and they're going to continue to expand. But I want people to remember these two names that I'm going to say out of my mouth. Hannah Hidalgo and Juju Watkins. Hannah Hidalgo is going to be at Notre Dame. Juju Watkins missed last year, and she is at USC. I'm going to say something right now that may piss a lot of people off. You thought Paige is good? If you thought Caitlin Clark is good, you ain't seen nothing till you see these two kids, especially Juju Watkins, who I think Big Sills is going to be the best of them all.
I saw her play a couple years ago at USC, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. All right, some college sports news. Interesting news. Next here on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I'll tell you what, the evolution of college sports is without a doubt going crazy here. And all of a sudden now, you know, a lot of things are being implemented in the game. And in the past, you had 5 years to play 4 years of eligibility in college sports. Well, now you've got a new rule that the NCAA has come out with 5 for 5. JY, how is this really impacting college and I would say college football and college basketball as we get ready for the upcoming 26 seasons of both hoop and in football?
Big Sills, this is the game changer, and we were waiting for this to kind of come down the pipe of what's going on. And you know, I talked to a bunch of Division I coaches on the men's and women's side about what is going on, and this goes back to a guy named Ross Dellinger. Ross Dellinger is a pretty big-time reporter, and he got word that they were looking at a age-based model, a 5-and-5 model in the spring. And from what I gathered talking to coaches, that immediately put them on the forefront of, okay, something is coming. When is the NCAA going to announce it? And from what I was told by a couple of coaches, they were sworn by the NCAA, nothing's going to happen. We're not worried. No lawsuits. Lo and behold, what happens? We get the court opinion over the weekend, and now there's an injunction that any kid that graduated high school in 2022, which means they graduated in 2026 in 4 years, now could have a 5th year of eligibility. This has opened up the floodgates. And the biggest thing that I got from the college coaching community, and this is the best answer I got from one of the coaches, is, why did they do this now? All they had to do, the NCAA, was wait until November and then say, or October, let the school academic year start. Let the classes start and say, okay, this is the model we're going to start for next year. They did not do that. So now we're in a situation where coaches are up in arms. They're not happy with the NCAA, with how they handled it, how it got leaked. And now the NCAA turned around saying, well, don't worry about it. But ready for this, Big Sills? Don't worry about it, but go at your own risk on how you want to develop your roster. Like, who does that? This is a rudderless ship that is hanging on to dear life. They tried the NIL because of the whole Ed O'Bannon case. That has backfired. They've done the portal. That has backfired. And Big Sills, you know where I'm going with this. This 5-and-5 thing, it's going to backfire.
No question about it. You talk about leadership. There is zero leadership at the National Communist Association of America. I will tell you that. And I would add this too, JY. There's over 1,000 kids right now in the football transfer portal. And now you add this. I mean, you got chaos right now. Some of those kids will never play ever again. And when you go into that portal, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to play. And now you're giving more eligibility to kids. I'll tell you what, JY, if you're a high school kid being recruited today, the impact of how the NCAA is operating, it's almost impossible to get a scholarship now, isn't it? Because if I'm a lesser program and not one of the Power 5 programs, I'm going to go into the portal and I'm going to wait for these kids here to give me another shot at being eligible here. No?
Yeah, absolutely, Big Sills, and it's completely wrecked recruiting. And on my show, the Coach's Edge with JY, I've had numerous coaches say to me, "Hey, high school kids and high school parents, here's your PSA now I'm announcing from Coach Young here in the beginning of August. If you get an offer from Division I school and you like it, I don't think you should wait. You should take the scholarship offer right now because teams are willing to just go into the portal." And that leads me back to what you just talked about, because I got a funny story that two coaches told me that are power coaches. They knew that when they did this 5-5, like the Patterson case, like this was going to come back to roost. So you know what some coaches did? They held scholarships, ready folks, for this coming year, expecting there to be more. And I got another two coaches saying to me, "That's okay. We just waited, just started raising more money to get more NIL." So this is the game that we're playing. Parents, I cannot stress to you enough. If you have a kid that is a Division I athlete that's got a scholarship offer, do not wait. Take it now, or you're going to lose it to a kid in the portal.
No question about it. Real quick, unionizing in Oregon. Real quick, tell me what the ramifications are of that.
It's absolutely going to be huge. But here's the thing to think about. Public versus private universities. Public universities, your state employees, not private. A lot of stuff they got to check out. But unionizing is coming.
No question about it, man. I can't wait to see how this thing translates for the college game going forward. Craig Mish for baseball. We'll do that next. Right here on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, baseball's trading deadline is on Monday. We had a chance to catch up with Craig Mish right before the program and get his thoughts on what's coming up with Major League Baseball. Here's that interview. All right, folks, we get a great opportunity to talk some Major League Baseball, and we're going to talk with Craig Mish here. And trading deadline is coming up on Monday, and I can't wait to see what happens in the National League if anybody could take down this Dodger team. First and foremost, though, I do have to start it out with Craig asking, what about my Hurricanes this year? Ohio State and Miami in the national title game. Do you like it?
Well, first of all, Dan, it's great to be with you. And, obviously, I know that your bias is for the University of Miami. And every single time I walk into Lone Depot Park and I'm on the broadcast team, I got to walk by all the old remnants of UM. And growing up and watching you play for UM, and then, of course, being at Bucks games that you played for, too, of course, I have a lot of respect for you as a football player. But now, as an analyst and a broadcaster, you could take that with it and go home, okay? I'm a Gator. I went to the University of Florida. I grew up in South Florida, but being a UF guy, it is crushing me to see UM play so well the last couple of years. And again, this year, too, one of the favorites to win it all? I don't know. I mean, it seems so hard in this day and age, Dan, of the NIL to just think that you could take any quarterback and inject them into a system. And I understand that Beck did a better job, of course, than Cam Ward did. But can you just keep going with a different quarterback in this NIL world every single year and produce a championship team? I guess we'll have to see. But, certainly UM being good is better for me in South Florida. But I am a Gator at heart here, so let's not get it twisted.
I will tell you, though, the state of Florida is better when all the big three are better.
I agree with you.
Florida State and with Florida there. And I do like what John Summerall, I think, is going to bring to that football program. I think he's going to be. I'm going to make a prediction to you here, Craig. People in 3-4 years from now are going to say this, that Summerall was a better hire than Lane Kiffin. Remember I said that to you here.
I hope so. I hope so, because I'm thinking Dan Mullen's doing a great job at UNLV. I'm like, wait a second here. We fired him to bring in Billy Day. I mean, I got to hope that eventually they get it right here, but I digress.
All right, let's get it over here to the Dodgers and what they did. We were talking with Bob Nightingale yesterday, and Scooble's a Dodger. I mean, you look at that rotation, Yamamoto, Ohtani, Glass now also. Man, the rich just keep getting richer. Your takeaway here with Scooble going to the Dodgers.
Look, it's a monumental move for them. And what I've always said about the Dodgers, and I'll say the same thing, they're playing within the rules that they are given. We need to stop complaining about that point of view. Of course, I have a much bigger view on baseball as itself. But from their point of view, they're only dealing with the cards that they're dealt, Dan, so they should be doubling down and tripling down and hitting on 16. They should be doing these things. That's number one. Number two, Dan, it does not guarantee a World Series. We saw that last year. They came very close in a couple of different plays to losing the World Series to the Toronto Blue Jays. What it guarantees, Dan, for the Dodgers is, of course, them getting to the playoffs, probably getting through the first round pretty easily, but it does not guarantee a ring. So that's what I would say about that. Their pitching staff, very formidable. They can now wait on Will Smith till the end of the year, bring him back whenever. They can wait on Blake Snell. Hey, Blake, just get back in September. We'll slide you into SP4 in the rotation in the NLDS or something like that. I know a lot of people are upset. I'm usually pragmatic about this sort of stuff, but I want to remind folks that Tampa Bay, Cleveland, Boston, you don't know in a Game 7 situation when it's going to come down to the last play of the game. And at that point, it doesn't matter who the Dodgers have. It matters, can a guy make a play? Last year, the Dodgers did to win it.
I want to go into the front office here. I had a chance to work with Andrew Friedman when he was with the Rays. And I got to tell you, Craig, you're talking about a guy who I think is maybe even elevated himself above Theo Epstein. One of the reasons they were able to make this move with the Tigers was because of their minor league system that he has built up there. It's one thing to have the open checkbook. It's another thing to be able to have a farm system. They've got guys all over that system, and he brought that from when he was in Durham, and he was a general manager, as I said, of the Rays here. This guy has to go down as one of the greatest general managers of all time as well.
A lot of folks have followed in his footsteps. Chaim Bloom is now the general manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. He was previously in Boston. Craig Breslow's getting a lot of credit for that, but these are all Chaim Bloom's guys that are doing it now. He got fired, I thought, pretty unfairly. Peter Bendix, who worked for both of those, is now the general manager in Miami. They're on the cusp of the wild card too. James Click was with Houston. He was also in Tampa Bay. The lineage just goes on and on. You're absolutely right, Dan, but also let's also not forget, even though the players that they traded are their farm system guys, the Dodgers also do a great job on the international market. They bring in players from the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, and some others, and of course from overseas as well. Sasaki, Yamamoto, that's a huge part of what they do as well. And this is not unlimited money like you could spend in the past, like on Yasiel Puig. You have a certain amount of pool money that you can use to get it done. The Dodgers are finding a way to do that too. But yes, Friedman, of course, is an elite executive among executives in Major League Baseball.
Anybody in the National League now, do you think, as you said, I mean, baseball's the toughest championship to win. I mean, the Dodgers are going after something that we haven't seen in the National League in over 100 years, and that's somebody going with a three-peat. I mean, it took all the way until last year for a back-to-back in the National League since the Big Red Machine. I mean, you know, is there anybody, though, as you know, baseball is so tough to win a championship, anybody that you think in the National League can beat them?
Yeah, I look, anything can happen, Dan. I would take the field. Absolutely would take the field from a betting perspective. I would take, look, I don't think Milwaukee's going to be built to beat the Dodgers in a 7-game series, but Milwaukee's been as good or better at home than the Dodgers this season. So certainly I would put them in that category. You never know when a team in the NL East like Atlanta could get hot. Philadelphia, I know they've been brutal lately, but on paper, Philadelphia's starting pitching, 1, 2, 3, Zach Wheeler, Sanchez. I mean, they have really good starting pitching. So we're getting we react to sports, and I get it. We all live in this world where we all want to react and get angry and get crazy. But in the end, I can't say this enough. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was 3 inches away from the Blue Jays winning the World Series. So yes, anybody can beat the Dodgers. Is it likely that they would not win the division? Come on, that's silly. Is it likely that the Dodgers wouldn't win the first round in the National League? Of course, that's silly too. But beyond that, anything goes in baseball. Whoever's hot, Dan, that team usually wins it all.
You know, you mentioned the Brewers, and you know, I bring this up with Bob Nightingale all the time. I called them the Milwaukee Cucamonga junior college baseball team. I can't name a guy on that team outside of Kristen Yelich. I mean, how do they do it, Craig? I mean, is that the National League's version of the Rays?
They're basically operating the same way, and so is Cleveland. They're all doing it the same way with small ball and finding ways to win at home. And they also have the back end of their bullpen in Milwaukee that once you get to the 7th, with Ashby, Uribe, and then McGill. I know you probably don't know those guys, but those guys are great. And so they usually win games. Also, the other thing, too, is, Dan, it's like the football team that wants to keep you hanging around to the end and be down, 2 with 4 minutes to go. And you just know that they're going to drive down the field. The Brewers just keep coming back late in games to win. They have more comeback wins late in games than any team in baseball this season. So they definitely have a great team. But the point that a lot of folks will make, and it's a great one, 7-game series against the Dodgers, a lot different than winning in the regular season, and I understand it.
No doubt about it. We're going to continue more of our conversation with Craig Mish here. We'll take a look at the pennant races next, right here on SportsGrid. And we will take a look at those pennant races, but boy, I'll tell you what, the Dodgers, we're going to talk a little bit later on about them, but you got to look at it, and we mentioned it already with Andrew Friedman and the job that he's done with tooling that baseball team. He is the best executive in all of baseball. And on top of that, you're talking Dave Roberts, one of the best managers and a Hall of Fame manager. Can anybody beat that Dodger team this year? I mean, you really got to wait and see what happens with Dave Dombrowski and those Phillies and seeing if they're going to bring another bat or maybe go after another arm. But, man, the Dodgers right now, can anybody beat them? We'll take a look at those pennant races with Craig Mish. We'll do that next. Keep it right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, Coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
All right, we're back here with Craig Mish here. We're going to talk a little bit about the pennant races going on. Let's start in your neck of the woods there, my old stomping grounds, Miami, South Florida here. How about the Marlins, dude? I mean, they've been going on these big swings, losing streaks, winning streaks. They're still a game and a half back in the wild card race. Are you surprised where they are?
I'm not surprised with what their record is, Dan. I thought they would be a team that probably would be around 500, maybe a little bit better, and so that's not surprising. I guess my surprise is just overall in baseball how tight these races are in the AL and the NL, where very few teams have really separated themselves. But I think that the opportunity for the Marlins to make the playoffs is really in their hands at this point. I know that what a lot of folks do this time of the year, Dan, is that front offices, they have their own projection systems far advanced from anything that we have. But if you want to look at some of that forward-facing material, it's all available on Fangraphs, and Fangraphs will sort of paint the picture percentage-wise as to where the teams will make it. Very similar to the betting markets, except for more intricate because it projects who you play against and the WAR and the teams you have and play against. And so Miami's chances are right around 20% right now, so that has them on the outside looking in. If you'll note, the Arizona Diamondbacks have really taken a big step up, and they've jumped into that race in a big way. The Pirates and Cardinals have taken a step back, and then Miami's kind of right there. But, Miami still has games against the Cubs, 6 of them. They still have games against Arizona, 3 of them. And so their schedule is going to get tougher after they get done with this weekend series with the Mets. And Mets stink, Dan. So it's really anybody playing the Mets these days, it's usually a series win. But I do think they have a chance to get in there in the end. But their approach feels a little bit more measured maybe than it did back in 2023 when they kind of pushed all their chips in to make the playoffs and get to that wild card, because it would seem, Dan, that teams, and this is very important to note, teams that have a chance to win the division should take a bigger push than teams to win the wild card, because if you get in the division, you're getting home games. That's a lot of money for these teams and a lot of attention for these teams. I don't know that Miami has a shot to get home games this year in their park. When they do, I believe they will go all in for it. And I think most teams, as you see, like the Astros probably going to make some big deals here coming in too, because now they have a chance to win the division. Much different scenario in a 5-game series or a wild card series opening up with home games in your park. Very big advantage.
You mentioned Chicago. I'll ask you about both Chicago teams. Who are you more surprised with? I mean, obviously the Cubs were supposed to be in the contention for, their division here. But how about those White Sox? I mean, Will Venable has to be considered the manager of the year. I mean, I never saw the Chicago White Sox coming. So I would assume you're probably like me here. The Chicago White Sox have to be maybe one of the most surprising teams in baseball this year.
Oh, absolutely. And they have the signing of the year with Munetaka Murakami, who missed some time, but is going to end up a 30 home run guy overseas on such a small contract. That was huge. They have another player, Colson Montgomery, a young player who's playing great. Miguel Vargas, who was in the trade that the White Sox made with the Dodgers a couple of years ago. So look, the White Sox are a little bit ahead of schedule. They made the trade for Luis Castillo. That shows you that they want to make a little bit of a push here and inject some life into their rotation. Realistically speaking, the White Sox are battling those Cleveland Guardians, Dan. Those are the same Guardians who won 10 games in a row in September last year. They were left for dead and then caught the Tigers and won the division. So that's who they're going to have to fight with, I think, to win the division. They've been a surprise as far as the Cubs go. I think, Dan, they're trending toward the postseason. But I got to tell you, it feels a little icky to me with the Cubs every year, or the Cubs a couple of years ago, they had it locked in. They didn't get in. Sometimes they make the playoffs. They get knocked out right away. I don't know. I feel like whoever plays the Cubs team in the first round, the Cubs will be favored. I'll probably take the other side.
I want to go back to Monday with the trading deadline here. I mean, so many teams are so close, especially in the American League. I mean, you're as close as 4 games out right now for a playoff spot. It just hasn't been great baseball in the American League, or maybe it's been parity. Do you think there's going to be a lot of activity going on Monday, or do you think people are still looking at it? Hey, we're still in it, because there are a lot of teams in the American League in a playoff picture.
I think Detroit now with the trade of Skubal has waved the white flag, Dan. I think that's obvious. I think the Blue Jays would be best served at this point to understand that even if they were to make a run, they're not good enough to go as deep as they did last year. I'm not sure what the Twins are doing, honestly, one way or the other. They seem to be acquiring players for what? I'm not sure, because I don't see them going very far, even with their best player being out in Byron Buxton. Dan, my answer, yes. I do think Monday there will be a lot of trades. Anybody who says that it's going to be an active trade deadline heading into Saturday or heading into Sunday has maybe some money to make off a click or something like that. Because this is the same deadline every year. It's going to be a very active deadline. No, it's a very active 5:55 Eastern PM trade deadline. Like every other sport, it's the way that it works.
Well, I'm going to spare you with the New York Mets. It's not the Mets anymore. It's the New York Mets. I mean, let's see if David Stern survives this thing here. Absolutely brutal. The worst team money can buy. Part 2. Craig, I appreciate you so much. Thank you, brother.
All right, Sills. Good seeing you.
It was great to talk to Craig Mish there, too. Yeah, I spared him the mess with the New York Mets, not the New York Mets. Listen here, no question about it, too, as we were mentioning here, the 2 baseball teams, who would have thought it? The 2 baseball teams in the state of Florida have a better shot to making it as a duo than the 2 teams in New York. Obviously, the Mets are going nowhere, and the Yankees are struggling right now a little bit without Aaron Judge, and seeing if the Rays are going to end up winning the American League East. You got 2 teams in the state of Florida that may actually make the playoffs here. Eric Neander, the job that he's done with that Rays team has been absolutely amazing. Now, I think they're going to make some moves come Monday. You put a starting pitcher or you get more help in there for that team in the last 15 years, and I'm talking the Rays, they have been the 4th winningest baseball team in the last 15 years. And that goes back again to when we were talking what Andrew Friedman did when he was a general manager there and Joe Madden was there. And then also what Neander and now with Kevin Cash have done. An amazing run in what they have been able to do with a $106 million payroll. Let's not forget something here. At the end of the day, too, they're in the mix right now on trying to get a new stadium built in Tampa. And when they get that new stadium, and if they're able to get the economics for that organization, can you imagine the Rays with money and then being able to go out and be a player in Major League Baseball, to go out and get people and add to that team and put players around Junior Caminero and players like that? I'm a big fan of the Rays, as you can tell. All right. So let me get this right. Going to prison and playing for the Jets is the same thing? We'll hit on that next here on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, I say this all the time about the New York Jets. You know, and Jet fans are funny because I have to keep reminding them the two most famous people in the history of the New York Jets are Joe Namath and Fireman Ed. Fireman Ed is a guy who hits himself in the head with a hammer every game, and I understand why, if you're a Jet fan, that you hit yourself in the head every single game because of some of the things you see out there on the field. But I thought I would never, ever hear a player ever make this comparison. Prison and playing for the Jets. So Plaxico Burress was talking about playing for the New York Jets. Burress compared playing with the New York Jets to prison. And I quote, they're both kind of similar because when you walk into prison on my first day, I was like, damn, man, you're a real loser, blurted out. And I had the same damn thing and the same damn feeling every day that I walked when I walked through the door when I was there at the Jet facility. Now, I've not heard that one before. Going to prison and playing for the New York Jets is like going to Rikers Island. How you doing? Hey, Plaxico, not really the messenger you're looking for to send that message out, carrying a gun in a bar, of course, and shooting yourself in the leg. That's for another show. But hey, it's kind of status quo for the kind of players that the New York Jets end up getting here with that program. Hey, this goes back down to the owner. When the owner runs his football team based off of Madden ratings, and his kid comes to him and says, we can't make a move for a guy like a Jerry Jeudy because, you know, Dad, he's not really ranked too high there on the Madden game. You end up Xing out that deal. The Jets haven't made the playoffs in 15 years. No quarterback has made it in the New York area with the Jets since Joe Namath, since 1969. You had a couple spurts with Boomer, with Vinny, Chad Pennington, ended up winning some games there, and Mark Sanchez. Other than that, it's been a colossal train wreck. The guy that works with baby oil and Band-Aids, Woody Johnson, is easily the worst owner in all of pro football. This guy makes poor hires, poor business decisions, and there's no question that is the worst run football program maybe in American sports? How do you look at your Jet fan base and sit there and have optimism? It's the only place in the National Football League that doesn't have the word optimism when you're readying for a regular season. The Jets ownership is the reason they're in the position that they're in. Look, you can go down to South Florida and you can look at Stephen Ross in the way that he runs the Miami Dolphins. You can go to Cleveland and look what Jimmy Haslam and the way he runs the Cleveland Browns. There's a reason that these organizations pick at the top of the draft every year. It's because of horrible leadership. Woody Johnson, again, name me a decent coach since Parcells that organization has had. You want to hear even more historical facts on the Jets? There's only been one coach in the history of the franchise that has a winning record, and that is Bill Parcells. Not even Weeb Ewbank, who won that Super Bowl in 1969, had a winning record. The Jets have always been poorly run, and the Jets will continue to be poorly run until they get new leadership. Hey, they say it trickles down, and it trickles down all over the place when you're there with the Jets. You know, they have brought good players into that organization. They just haven't brought good football people into that organization. And I would do this. There has been one guy that has coveted a job and wanted to work with the New York Jets a couple years back. You know who that was? Howie Roseman. If I were Woody Johnson, I would go to Howie Roseman and offer him a percentage of the team to come in, be the general manager / president of the Jets. You need somebody in there, like a John Schneider, a Howie Roseman, to show you what football really is, dude. You're not going anywhere. Every single year, we hear the same stuff with Jet fans. Every year, we see the same incompetence. Eric Glenn is over his skis. He's not qualified to be an NFL head football coach. Look at the coaches that they have brought in. No autonomy and no experience. It just doesn't make sense. But it does because of the owner. They will not win as long as Woody Johnson is the owner of that football team. There's no question why they ended up taking all the power away in Johnson & Johnson, and he doesn't have his hands on any of that, or he'd run that company into the ground. The New York Jets, where are they going in 26? To the top 5 of the NFL draft again. Hey, Jet fans, get ready for your draft parties because 26th season will be over before it starts. Randy Cross next. You're on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Man, I've known this man for over 40 years, going back playing against him and watching him as an NFL man and then as an NFL analyst and now a college analyst too with CBS Sports. And we talked yesterday a little bit about the passing of Billy Ray Smith Jr. and his dad played 14 years in the National Football League as well. Randy Cross, the owner of 3 Super Bowl rings with those legendary 49er teams. We'll get into the Niners here in a second, but Randy, appreciate you coming aboard. And boy, you know, Dean Spano said it perfectly, the owner of the Chargers. To know Billy Ray is to love Billy Ray, one of the truly great people that really played in our league and really one of the truly great men and an impact guy in San Diego.
Yeah, he really was. Such a sad story. And as you know, Dan, there's innumerable examples of guys that are going through this exact same thing that Billy Ray went down with, and it's really sad, and it's something that, you know, unfortunately, you know, the league has done a really good job of kind of squashing that connection between football and, you know, dementia and early onset Alzheimer's and CTE and everything else. It's like, you know, you want to get booted out of the NFL family, talk a lot about those subjects, but just another reminder, and unfortunately, it's been happening way too often. I mean, Billy Ray was a high-profile example, but we don't go a week without an example or two of guys that are either been diagnosed, think they have it, or you know, victims of suicide, which was, you know, when Junior Seau went down. You know, it was, oh, well, you know, it was suicide. Well, no, it was trying to avoid going through the progressive that is this disease. It's unfortunate that it is kind of squashed like that, because nature you've come to learn here, that's kind of the nature of the medical business, is you only fully enriches you the most.
Absolutely. And, you know, for Paul Tagliabue to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, a guy who said that it never really existed, is an atrocity to the players. And it really is an embodiment to what was wrong with how they looked at CTE. I say this before, and I'll say it again to you, Randy. You know, there's only been 29,000 men that have ever played in the National Football League. There's only 16,000 of us that are alive. They're just waiting for us to die. I mean, you talk about player safety, and now they're adding and wanting more football games. I mean, the union and how the league handles CTE is just poor.
Well, with all the training camps open up, how hilarious is it to see these teams all wearing these Guardian caps, which zero. I mean, these are studies that have come out. They don't help. It's prophylactic. Let's put it that way, and look that word up. It's just it makes guys feel better, and it gives me and it's very frustrating, but you know, that's just kind of the way things go. And it's not just that. What people don't realize, Dan, is it's not just, you know, CTE. There are so many various grades of Alzheimer's and early onset Alzheimer's and everything else, dementia and whatnot. Now, at CTE, you're not going to be, until you donate your brain and they study it after you die. You don't listen to these people that say, well, I'm on my way. You don't know. Nobody knows. The scientists don't know. I mean, the top people in that field, which are at Boston University and the Concussion Legacy Foundation, they don't know. They know it ain't good for you, but they don't know exactly where it's at. So yeah, the whole Billy Ray thing, when I saw that, it just really, just to be blunt, it just pisses you off.
Surely does. And those caps that you mentioned on the helmets, I wonder who recommended him. Maybe Dr. Fauci did. I don't know. Anyway, we go on there with this.
Yeah.
And let me add this to you here with the 49ers. Some more bad news with the 49ers here now with Ricky Pearsall, the coach, also getting into a car accident. Just your takeaway. I mean, they won 12 games a year ago. What are your expectations for them this year, Randy?
Well, they're a team that they're going to go as far as their legs and their health lets them go. You look at that roster, that is a talented group of guys. I mean, that is a high powered off defense. Now, getting Warner back, but you got to stay back. You just got to stay healthy. And it doesn't have anything to do with the power plant, the electric plant there on site. It's guys wear out. And I think if you were to be serious about NFL team health, I think you'd really have to look at the amount of training that guys do in the off season. It's almost like you got to sort of back things down a little bit. You need rest time. You need time where you're not working out. Are you still staying in shape? Yeah, stay in shape, run, do whatever. But, your body only has so many, as we know, you only got so many reps in you.
Well, here, Randy, so you say that,
and once
though.
those reps, you go, yeah, I think I'll get all of my life.
Yeah, absolutely here. But, Randy, let me ask you this then. Why do you think September then? I call it Liars Month because they don't have the same practice time that you and I had back in the day. You and I went through 2-a-days. You and I went through 3-a-days. And that first month of September, you really don't know what your team is and who your team is until after. I think you get into October. Do you think teams need to do a better job of getting themselves prepared for preseason games? Because the month of September, how many times do we see teams get out to a great start? And that's not near what that team is. You guys always, your football teams, Randy, when you guys were playing, you guys were always getting better and better and better and better and better by the end of the year. I don't know if I see that nowadays.
Well, it's and you can put whatever marketing label you want on your product. The bottom line is you get better at the things that you do the most reps on. And the most blatant problem in September is really, really, really basic. It's not accuracy from quarterbacks. It's not running and cutting from running backs. It's not route running by by wide receivers, and it's not anything a defense does or the intricate type of attacks they put on an offense. It's really, really simple blocking and tackling. And defenses don't tackle well in September. Teams don't block well in September. So, you see it on tape, you watch it, and you just go, all right, well, they're going to get their stuff together pretty quick here. But, live reps are live reps.
Absolutely. Real reps, as you like to call them as well. Rams, right? Myles Garrett, Trent McDuffie, team to beat, right?
In the West, that's the good news for the Niners. I think people aren't expecting much from them. They're expecting them to really be, maybe have a few injuries, maybe not be quite as good. So I think they're in the catbird seat out west. And yeah, Rams should be favored in that first game, which is going to be over down under in Melbourne. How would you like that trip?
Oh, no.
And then have a game. You do it. You play on a Thursday, but you then have a game not the next Sunday, but in 10, 11 days. No thanks.
No way. No thanks. We're going to continue more of our conversation in college football with Randy Cross next from CBS Sports, but our great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason. With over $30 billion recovered, there is no firm like it. Told you about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K. They got nearly $30 million in settlement. Or the family in Florida that was offered $350,000. They got nearly $12 million in settlement. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sil sent you. We are going to talk a little bit of college football with our friend Randy Cross from CBS Sports. Is Kurt Signetti right? Is the Big Ten better than the Southeastern Conference? We'll do that next, right here on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Going to talk some college football here with our friend Randy Cross from CBS Sports, and he covers college football for CBS Sports. And Kurt Signetti made a comment, you know, at the Big Ten meetings there, and he made the comment that, hey, guess what? He believes, and I'm going to paraphrase it here, that the Big Ten is better than the Southeastern Conference. And look at that comment he made, too. The Big Ten is the best league in football. We don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest, and we don't cry a river and whine and complain like the Southeastern Conference coaches do. Retort, Randy Cross?
Hey, you know, when you've got the national championship trophy for the last couple of years, you can talk as much smack as you want. And if you're Kurt's like a Nick Saban-like effect on your football team and your conference, hey, I'm all for it. Let her rip, because the SEC, to be honest with you, has taken a step back. And I think that's been one of the results of the NIL. For all the money in the SEC, it is kind of ironic that the NIL has kind of leveled the field.
Yeah, because now it's on the table, not under the table, maybe a little bit here. So what's your take on Lane Kiffin at LSU, Randy? Do you think he has an impact? I mean, look, Brian Kelly won 9 games there a year, 9-10 football games as the coach there. What are they expecting Lane Kiffin to do? Lane hasn't had tremendous success outside of Ole Miss. He was okay at Tennessee. He was okay at Southern Cal. What are you expecting at LSU?
Yeah. At LSU, they are definitely expecting him to end interviews with "Go Tigers."
Right
but
on.
he is going to, you know, I quit underestimating Lane Kiffin. He's one of those guys, you should never let what you think, the kind of person he is, and, you know, personality-wise, that you got to get that out of your equation with him. He's a hell of a football coach. He's a really good offensive coach. And he'll have that team playing their butts off. I think they're going to be really, really good. They're going to be one of the top 3 teams, I believe, at the end of the year in the SEC, and that's saying something when you got people like Georgia and whatnot, and Texas, the eternal underachievers. I guess eventually Texas has to be good. But I would pretty much guarantee you LSU is going to be a lot of trouble.
You think Sark at Texas is overrated?
It's hard to tell the last couple of years because there's been such a Manning bubble over that offense. It's like everything's about Arch, and which I feel really sorry for the kid. I think he's a hell of a player and he plays really well. But if you're not your uncle, one of them, you're coming up short. But it would go a long way for Sark in Texas for Arch Manning to just come out and just ball. And they've got the games to give him the platform to raise him into a legitimate, and I guess he's legitimate now as far as a Heisman Trophy, but he can put his name on all those people. He can start doing it pretty early.
Absolutely here. Randy, who are you more disappointed in right now? Bill Belichick at UNC or Deion Sanders at Colorado?
God, that's sadly, that's a hard choice. And I love Bill. I think Bill is Bill. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's won a gazillion championships, and sometimes you take on a job or a project that maybe was a little too down. I mean, it's like going to UCLA and being a football coach. Yeah, you can win 9 or 10 games, but you're never going to be the basketball coach. And at UNC, you can win 8, 9 games, maybe 10, but you're never going to be the basketball coach at UNC. You're never going to be the man. Deion, unfortunately, had such a flash there with all that NIL he did and the churning. He's the poster guy right now for churning and burning, going through rosters. And I just think eventually a lack of culture and a lack of consistency really comes up and bites you in the butt. And we'll find out about his theories and his abilities now that his kid's gone and he's missing a Heisman Trophy two-way player. It's going to be I think a very sobering year for Colorado.
Do you agree that one of the things maybe that hurt Bill Belichick going to UNC, Randy, he took that college job in a transition of NIL, and also I like to call it free agency, which is the transfer portal. I mean, it was just going through that renaissance. And let's not forget, like you just said, UNC is not like going to Georgia or Alabama. I mean, I don't know what people expected Bill Belichick to do. Win 13 ball games there. They've never been a national power. So, you get the Nike stuff and all, but maybe it was just poor timing because who would have thought this, Randy? Saban failed going to the NFL, and Belichick looks like he may be, in that line to be a failure in the college ranks here. Do you think he just went through poor timing when he took that UNC job?
I think looking back on it, if he did have other choices, he might be saying, I wish I had gone somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely there. All right. Hey, do you think the SEC does bounce back this year and get a national title?
I think if they're going to break this stranglehold right now, this would be the year to do it. The problem is, and they've got Texas and they've got Georgia and they've got LSU. Two or three teams in the Big Ten that we know are going to be good.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a bunch of teams at Southeastern Conference, no question about it. I mean, they got to make a bounce back because, I mean, you can't go 4 years in a row not having the national championship. I mean, it just can't happen.
Are they still playing in Florida? Do they still have a program?
Yeah, well, the University of Florida, they're kind of with a program. I got Ohio State this year, Randy, for the national title. What do you think?
Wow. I would agree that, and I like Miami now, not for all the talent that handles the ball. I like Miami at the line of scrimmage. They're as good, if not better, than anybody in the country.
Appreciate you, brother.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
So the WNBA never stops giving when it comes to content. I've never seen anything like this. You talk about incompetence when it comes to running that league, and Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of that league, just will not get it right. So this week, there was a tweet that was put up, and we have to show you this tweet. 2 players in the WNBA were talking about betting on a game. And here's this tweet that went viral. And by the way, this was on the WNBA Twitter page. Roll it, guys.
At All-Star Weekend, you and Angel made a bet with each other on this game. Is that bet still?
This is how the rich stay rich. You
gotta save this money. I'm gonna see you next week on Wednesday.
Yeah.
At night?
No, at practice.
Oh, at practice? I mean, I know y'all gonna lose, but if y'all lose,
I get to have that.
If y'all win, you get 400.
I get 400. And if we lose, then you get 200.
No, you owe me 400.
Bet I'm staying on it.
Okay, so 2 players were talking about betting on a game prior to playing the game. Could you imagine that in both college? We just went through Brandon Sorsby, and then we just went through the issues that are going on in the National Football League, and the WNBA actually promoted that and put it on their website. When are we going to see a change at the top? Look, the WNBA is in a really good place right now. I've said this before to you guys. 28 years, that league lost a ton of money and was going nowhere. Now, you have an opportunity to make a boatload of money. The league is getting massive exposure, and you're seeing great promotion when it comes to the players with great identities. Look at Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham is not one of the top 20 players in that sport, but yet she's becoming a cult figure. The league is actually gaining steam and being covered like a mainstream sport. When are they going to get the leadership that they need at the top? You're talking about gambling between players, and they actually, like I said, put that video on their Twitter page and thought that that was a good idea. the commissioner of the league, again, is a buffoon. She just absolutely doesn't understand what she has here with a moneymaker now that the NBA is looking even down into when you're talking with Adam Silver now getting involved. WNBA players are making more money. They're traveling first class. They're getting an opportunity to play in all these great arenas. And now you've got to start acting like a mainstream sport. You're no longer just an off sport. You are now being covered like a major sport. I don't really think they were prepared for this. You know how sometimes you're a young athlete and you get drafted. I show this to people all the time and tell people this all the time. When I went into the National Football League and I got my signing bonus with the Buccaneers, I had more money than I had ever had in my entire life at the time. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea. I wasn't prepared going into that with the kind of money and the kind of fame that you go into when you go into a league. You're not prepared for that. It looks to me like the WNBA is not prepared for the big time. They have not really done a great job at answering any questions when it comes to the athletes, when it comes to the storylines we saw with the owner in Seattle going after fans in the stands. I mean, guys, you're now in a position where this league is now being covered like the NBA. Act like it. You're professionals. You've got to know where you are when it comes to gambling. When you're an athlete, gambling right now, folks, is a taboo when it comes to these commissioners. They don't want it being seen that the game, again, has got any kind of issues when it comes to gambling. We saw that in college football. And now you're putting that out there and you're tweeting that out. Look, they got a long way to go before they're going to be really recognized on doing the right thing and making that league really where people think it should be. It's in a great place financially for the first time in nearly 30 years. And now they've got a shot. These folks need to get their you-know-what together and get their opportunity to promote that league and go forward with it and understand that they're in a position now where they can make themselves a lot of money and make the other players in the game a lot of money. Stuff like that, you thought that was a good idea? Like where? My God. All right. We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk some college football. And I got to tell you, I can't wait until we talk to CBS's Rick Neuheisel. By the way, he also works for my buddy, The Rock. And The Rock there with the Dallas Renegades. And, Dwayne Johnson is a dear friend of ours. And he's the head football coach of the Dallas Renegades there with the UFL. They had a really good football season. We'll talk to Rick Neuheisel next, right here on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Man, I love watching him on CBS's College Football, Rick Neuheisel, but he also is the head football coach of the UFL Dallas Renegades. He took over for Coach Stoops and his first year there. And, Coach, what did it feel like to be back on the sidelines again? I know that that's your number one thing and you love coaching. Had to feel pretty cool getting back on the sidelines.
Dan, it was a blast. I worried about, did I have the energy? Did I, all the different things that people worry about when you're away from it, how competitive will we be and all that stuff. It was like riding a bike. You just get back in there. And the wonderful thing about spring football, for those who are wondering, is there's a number of really, really talented players that probably finish somewhere in between numbers 45 and 60 on an NFL roster, right? So they're on the right side of the line, but they don't last a long time, and they fall over to the wrong side of the line, believe that they can still play. So you get a bunch of guys, but what they are incredibly dedicated guys that want to do everything the right way. And so in terms of the model citizen, you get them. And we had a blast. And I thought I was a genius when we were 3-0, Dan. I got this. Then all of a sudden we lost 6 in a row. We had leads and couldn't hang on to them. But we won our last game. And as I say, all's well that ends well. But I really enjoyed it. And I think I'm going to do it again next year. I think I'm excited about having another chance at it.
That's fantastic. Anthony Beck is a dear friend of mine. And he told me, he's like, when you're in a position like that, it's almost like being back in college a little bit, because you've got to be the GM. You've got to be the head coach. You've got to, understand where the laundry goes, the travel
in
and all
old
that.
college. Back in old college.
Old college, right. Old college.
Yeah.
Right? Did it
New
bring
college
a little bit
is
of that
something we recognize. Exactly.
Yeah, so
100%. You are the in charge of personnel. You're in charge of all of it. And Anthony did a great job. They got themselves to the playoffs. We had a game. Matter of fact, the UFL created a game at Fort Hood, the big Army base there in Texas. And we played them in a stadium on the base. They got us by a touchdown. I think 31-24. But it was a heck of a game. And all the Army personnel coming to the game, that was a treat to get to play in front of the troops.
Absolutely. Let me take you to the college ranks here. Is Curt Cignetti right, Coach? The Big Ten is right now just head and heels above the Southeastern Conference?
Well, if we're talking championship football, the answer is yes, because not only has the Big Ten won 3 in a row, the SEC hasn't played in a championship game in those 3 years. Now, if you're looking at the strength of the two conferences and you're comparing them from top to bottom, I still might lean a little bit to the SEC, and from a parity standpoint, because the number of teams in that league that can beat the top team, I think is a bigger number. With that being said, it's going to be fascinating to see the impact of the 9th conference game in the SEC. You are guaranteeing 8 more losses to that conference. 8 more losses are going to find themselves, and it's like Russian roulette. Where those bullets land is anybody's guess. So it is going to be a very interesting year for the SEC as they try to climb back into championship level football, as well as manage 8 more losses spread about no one knows.
How about this, Coach? Lane Kiffin came out and said, how do you know how good you are if you're not playing other people? And I'm paraphrasing that a little bit. Do you think this is good for the league, this 9-game schedule?
The 9-game conference schedule is not going to be
Yes.
great for the league. It's going to be great for the quality of television. And somewhere in the television deal that they signed with the Disney, ABC, ESPN, the language had to say that this was going to come about because the inventory is going to be unbelievable. And for the college football fan, that's a terrific thing. But if you're trying to impress a college football playoff committee and you're trying to get there yourself, they have never really taken on the strength of schedule. It almost always comes down to what your record was, regardless of who you played. Steve Sarkisian made that point last year. If we are 10-2 and played, Sisters of the Poor rather than Ohio State in the non-conference, we'd have been in the college football playoff. And he's right. So where do we find a incentive to play good on good? Which is why I think we're talking more 24 teams going in. And I think I would like to see automatic qualifiers. People worry about automatic qualifiers and having the negative impact on our regular season. I think the regular season will be enhanced incredibly, especially late October, early November, where you have to get to this number if you're going to make the playoff, just as the NFL does. And seeding is important because you're trying to get a home game. So I think we're going to get there. The question is when.
Coach, I was asked the question as Miami was going for their national championship this last year, is it harder to win a national championship today than it was then? And boy, I think it is. I mean, Coach, you go through that playoff where you got to go through Ole Miss, Ohio State. Now, look, we were an independent back in the day when we won it in 87, but you're not going to see dynasties any longer because of this playoff, are you?
Well, a couple reasons. The playoff is one. Certainly, the gauntlet that you have to run through to get to the finish line is very much a problem. The second thing is player retention. Players are coming and going like nobody's business because they're being lured by attractive contract offers. So it is very difficult to sustain a championship level program. But the gauntlet that both Ohio State went through and this last year Indiana was incredibly impressive.
Coach, are you a fan of the 12-team playoff? Do you like what you're seeing? Do you think it needs to be expanded? There's talk of 16, potentially even 24. Do you like where it is, or do you think it needs to be modified?
Well, whether I like it or not, it's going to be expanded. Because the answer is money. Now, what was the question? This is...
It all ends with money, right?
It all ends. They're going to need more money. And all these programs know it. We've got jersey patches now. We've got all sorts of things going on. Ultimately, we're going to grow to 24. When that happens is up to Tony Petitti of the Big Ten and Greg Sankey of the SEC. Those two have to make a deal. And Greg is sitting there going, you can't make me leave what we're doing now when I'm making $100 million on my SEC championship game. Because if you go to 24, the championship games are out. He has to have that $100 million replaced before he can go to his presidents and say this is a good idea. So they're going to have to work through that. But eventually we'll get to 24, and it'll be exciting. And we'll have some play-in games. I can even envision, Dan, someday where there's a challenge game, right? The committee's got so many teams on the right side of the line and so many on the wrong side. Can you imagine the SEC having a team like Missouri saying, okay, we're going to go to Eugene, Oregon. We're going to play Oregon on the last week of the season, a challenge game. And now the Big Ten gets to fire back and say, Illinois is going to go to Ole Miss and play a challenge game so that we can show that this team is better than that team. Imagine the television ratings for those kind of contests.
No question about it. Coach, Brendan Sorsby, inside of a minute, what'd you make of that case? And do you think we're going to see more of these cases?
Well, the deeper we want to dive, we can find more of those cases. It'd be ridiculous to think that Brendan Sorsby's the only kid out there betting on games. It's too easy. What did we think was going to happen when you can get on a phone and bet on balls and strikes, and you can bet on anything known to man, especially at low dollar figures? Of course you can do that. I feel badly for Brendan Sorsby. I understand why we drew a line where we drew it. And I'm just hoping like heck that Brendan Sorsby gets a chance to chase his dream at the next level, because I don't think it was so much about him. I thought it was a little bit about jealousy of Cody Campbell and Texas Tech.
Right.
And
we'll continue more in the next segment here on SportsGrid.
I know you didn't. Talk.
I'm innocent. Got the wrong guy. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Okay, it was me. I did it.
Bringing an owl to an interrogation? That's a power move.
Every time.
Yeah. Hiring America's largest injury law firm for your injury? That's also a power move. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest...
CBS Sports' Rick Neuheisel is here with us right now, and also the UFL's head football coach, the Dallas Renegades. Coach, would you like to get back into the college game and get back to coaching a college football program again?
My answer to that question, Dan, always is you never say never, because I miss it. College football was fun, but I do get my fix. My son is the quarterback coach at Northwestern. So I get, whenever I really need a fix, I just get on the phone and remember how many problems there are. And I can sit there and say, maybe I'm in a good spot right now. But I'm a huge college football fan, as many of your listeners are. It is the greatest game, and we just got to work hard to protect it.
So this leads me to this now with Nil. Coach, I never thought we'd be in a conversation with, hey, Coach, I really like the schedule I'm playing. I really like the stadium you have, and I like your facilities. Coach, how much you paying me? I mean, do you like the Nil? Do you think it's good for the sport? Do you think it's helping the sport?
It was high time that the players participate in the growing and expanding popularity of the sport. It was high time that the scholarships be commensurate with the value of the game. But we were too late. You know, the problem with the NCAA isn't that there were selfish and greedy people. The problem with the NCAA is you had so many different schools at such different levels of financial wherewithal that they couldn't agree as to how much the players should get. And because of it, we waited too long. And then the Alston case in 2021 went to the Supreme Court, and they voted 9-0 that the NCAA couldn't keep these kids from earning their name, image, and likeness rights. And because of that, we are in a free-for-all. That also, coupled with the fact that you can transfer whenever you want to, has created some chaos. And right now, there's a lot of disgruntled fans that think that the kids are greedy and so forth. And I would argue that, listen, they deserve something, but we should be careful as to how we go about it. I know there's a Protect College Sports Act right now that now the SEC and the Big Ten have gotten behind it, but they're against the clock, Dan. They've got to get that thing to the floor this week before Congress goes on vacation, which will start next Friday. And if that happens, then the likelihood, given the midterm elections, that this will be put off, and who knows what happens with future administration. So ultimately, we're against the clock right now if we're going to get some help from Congress and stop all this antitrust legislation.
Coach, do you think government intervention is important right now? Do you think it needs to be involved in the decision-making of college football?
There's only two ways to get this to stop being just legal, mumbo jumbo. One is to go collectively bargain. Doesn't look like we want to do that because unionizing the players is difficult, arduous, because they come and go so quickly. And the other way is government intervention. And this administration has shown that they have a proclivity to want to do it. There's some really good stuff in this bill that helps protect the Olympic sports, those that don't make a bunch of money with football money. My hope is that we can get this done. Whether or not it does is probably a coin flip.
Coach, for a guy like you, back in the day, we had so many players that were deep at the University of Miami, Cortez Kennedy, Russell, Maryland. You can go down the list.
Having played against Miami, Dan, I know exactly how deep you were. When we played you guys when I was at Washington, if I could have pulled a curtain at the 50-yard line so my players didn't have to look over there and see who they were going to have to get into the arena with, I would have pulled the curtain. I guarantee it.
I can tell you this, though, Coach. How does a coach like you build chemistry in today's portal system? How do you build all that stuff that you're trying to build with a culture and what you want to try to get as a message for your team? It's got to be more difficult today.
It's difficult in the assembly of the team. It's difficult because you have to deal with financials. You have to decide what your value is for each position and so forth. But once you have the team, once you have the guys who have said yes, I heard Sonny Dykes say this is the happiest team he's ever coached because everybody's there because they chose to be there. And now it goes about, okay, now we go back to all the same principles that were true, going back to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and on. You start now building sacrifice. You start building team. You start building the awareness of what everybody else is doing, the importance of accountability, and all those things factor in. That's old school football. It has nothing to do how we're getting compensated, what you do when you go home, whether you're going to your own private chef, you got a condominium that they bought for you. All of that might be different, but at the beginning and when you're at the facility, all of that's very, very much the same.
Boy, Coach, you're right. You want volunteers and not hostages. And again, I guess that's you're right where it goes. I want to ask you about the transfer portal. I mean, Coach, you get a lot of people now saying that, there's people that are tampering, they're doing this, they're doing that. Are you a fan of what you see with this transfer portal?
I don't know that there's another way around it, but the fact that we now have agents and they become third-party conduits as to what sort of offers are out there, tampering is impossible to get rid of. People are always going to be calling and asking, can I get your interest if you have an interest in, you name the school. I was talking to a basketball coach that took his team to the tournament this year, and he said it got so bad that somebody from the SEC had actually bought a front row seat and was talking to the player in the layup lines. I'm going, might be a bridge too far, but tampering's part of it. The transfer portal is the transfer portal. I would love to see in these talks you get one-time transfer for nothing, a second transfer. Now you go back to the old rule where you have to sit a year. When you start doing it as a free agent all the time, I think it becomes very difficult. And it becomes very difficult for our fans who are paying for everything to kind of keep track of who the heck is playing on my team. And I think that's hard. Maybe we can get some hometown discounts, Dan.
Absolutely. Coach, 30 seconds. I got OSU Miami in the title game. You like that pick?
Well, I figured you'd have Miami in the title game, Dan. You're a homer.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, a self-admitted homer, and I like that. But listen, Mario's done a great job, and there's no question they have the resources to build another championship team. I'm going to take Texas, and I'm going to take Oregon to play in the final game.
Coach, thank you so much. I hope we can do this again. I'm sending a nice text message to my friend The Rock there, too, and I'm giving him an update. Coach Neuheisel's coming back. Thank you so much, Coach. Final thoughts next right here on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors, and when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there, but I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
As you could probably tell, I like a villain. And sports has a villain. It's the Dodgers. Everybody whining and crying. Scooble's now a member of the Dodgers. They get it done before the trading deadline. And now everyone is saying that the Dodgers are bad for Major League Baseball. And that there's no question going to be a work stoppage coming up in December. Because everything that is wrong with baseball, the Dodgers, they personify that. I think the Dodgers have taken advantage of every single thing that Major League Baseball's incompetent people that ran that league, going all the way back to Bud Selig, is now coming to roost. Hey, guess what? The collateral damage that you set for all these teams to go local and localize these teams when it came to their television deals, well, guess what? Spectrum and the Dodgers are running laps around Major League Baseball teams, including the Yankees, the Mets, the Phillies. Name a team that has one of these networks that give them money. And what are the Dodgers doing? They're taking full advantage of the loopholes that were created in Major League Baseball by its leadership. Don't get mad at the player. Get mad at the game. The people that set this up and set the Dodgers up, when they got competent owners and they've got a competent president / general manager and Andrew Friedman pulling the strings, this is what you're going to get. Look at the Mets. The Mets are the total opposite of the Dodgers. They actually spent more money going into the 26th season than what the Dodgers did. And look at the Mets where they are, and then look at the Dodgers where they are. spending the right money and making the right moves. Hey, let's not forget something. Do you know that the Dodgers have one of the top 5 minor league systems also in baseball? It's not just going out and pulling the Steinbrenner, and that is going out and spending money on the biggest names in baseball and bringing them to Los Angeles, which they do anyway. But Andrew Friedman buying a championship, the Yankees have been doing this since 1927. And now, no longer are the Yankees doing this, it's the Dodgers. It's funny how people look at it now, and they're looking at the Dodgers and saying that the Dodgers are bad for baseball. The Yankees have been doing this since they purchased Ruth's contract in 1923. Going out and buying players has been a mantra of the New York Yankees. Roger Maris, Reggie Jackson. Go down the list of some of the greatest players that have ever played in this game have been bought and brought into New York by the Yankees. Oh, now all of a sudden it's not the Yankees and it's the Dodgers. The Dodgers are bad for the game? The game right now is in chaos. You no longer have, where we were kids, you know what, the game of the week on Saturdays, where Kansas City and the Twins were perennial teams that would fight for a playoff spot. You have the haves and the have-nots. You have the little markets and the small markets. You know what's crazy in football? Green Bay is in market number 289. And it doesn't matter where the Green Bay Packers are. They get great ratings, massive revenue, and they share profit sharing. That's what makes that league great. National Football League cares more about the bottom teams than they do about the top teams because you're only as strong as the weakest link in your league. That's why the National Football League has the draft set up the way it does. That's why the draft is set up to give all this and getting an opportunity for them to be able to look at Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball has got to change their game, okay? They've got to change their game. By the way, just in my ear right now, Peralta has been traded to the Rays. As we said, we thought the Rays would be pretty proactive, and Eric Neander, the general manager, is going all in now for the American League East because it looks like Judges may not have the time to be able to come back and give the Yankees any kind of time there at the end of the year there. It looks like the Rays have made a move here. I wouldn't be shocked if the Rays end up making more of a move here. But, yeah, the Dodgers, they've upset the apple cart. And everyone's upset with Major League Baseball. So I'm all over it, man. I think you need a villain in sports, and the Dodgers are that villain. Kudos to them. Hey, by the way, send it in more. Keep bringing all the great players to Los Angeles. Makes Major League Baseball have to stand up and take accountability for the other teams that are in their league as well. Hey, man, this is the game. You created it, and the Dodgers are a great villain. Will someone beat them like the Phillies? Maybe the Brewers? We shall see. Scrubble now a member of the LA Dodgers, and now you've got Ohtani, Blake Snell, Glasnow, and you've got Yamamoto in your starting rotation. I mean, can anybody beat him? I doubt it. We will see you next week. Have yourself a great one. Football next week, too.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there, but I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live only on SportsGrid.